Hey friends, I had something show up yesterday in keeping with I had an insight yesterday, and I'm going to talk about it today. Theory of things. I had an insight show up around, so I was practicing yesterday. What was yesterday? Friday. I had a lesson yesterday with Madeline, which I believe I talked about a little bit on my post, and then I was practicing a little afterwards. And I just noticed something. It was like, I noticed an energetic dynamic in how I was approaching my practice, and then what I felt like afterwards, and just the whole like meta experience of practicing. And what I mean by that is there's something that happens to me. It's like an emotional, it's an emotion, it's a feeling, it's a sense, it's a whole body, mind, psyche sense that's so normal. It's so much the way I feel all the time that I almost don't notice it. But I have become aware of it, on a handful of occasions, and yesterday was one of them. And what it basically amounts to is, when I'm practicing, there's this urgency, it's like a pushing, not a feeling of being pushed or a feeling of pressure or, there's nothing like, on the surface, there's nothing negative about it, in the sense of like, it doesn't feel like it's imposed upon me. But there's this sense in which I feel like if I make effort, that's how I'm going to make progress. Like by making more effort, I'll make more progress. That's my underlying like operating system. And now obviously I've learned in any number of ways, and especially through working with Madeline, I keep getting reminders of the fact that more effort does not mean more progress. In fact, generally the opposite is true when you're talking about specific techniques. If I could learn, there's so many ways in which my practice right now is about making less effort rather than more. But those ways are still kind of confined to specific technical or musical aspects of what I'm doing. In the overall picture, I still feel like that rule applies. Like if I make more effort, then I'll make more progress. So in other words, what I have accepted on the level of certain details and on the level of certain aspects of what I'm doing on the piano, I have not yet accepted as an overall framework for how everything works. And what was showing up yesterday was a question about that. And I was just kind of feeling that residual tension from the effort. And there's always a residual frustration as well, because the effort never gets where it wants to go. It never quite gets to where it wants to go. Now, sometimes it gets pretty close. Some days I'll come away from the piano feeling pretty good because, whatever, I made some progress, something got easier, whatever the thing is. Like I took some steps forward, and I can feel that, I can log that in my body, and it feels good. But but most of the time there's a gap between what I'm trying for and where I got to, and most of the time there's a sense of lingering frustration because I can't quite do what I wish I could do. And so tracking that and just really kind of honestly looking at that brings me to a place where I'm like, what if I question that approach? What if I, and what would it even mean to question that approach? How could I, can I truly show up and make no effort? I think it's possible. And what I've noticed about, specifically the work I've done with Madeline, but I would say it's even broader than that. It's the way that I've been working, including my own teaching of myself. As a musician, as a pianist, or anybody who practices anything, we are our own teacher first, and we are our own primary teacher. We are the ones that teach ourselves. And understanding that relationship is a important point, because there actually is this aspect of us that's the teacher within us. It's not just our whole, at least with me, there's a sense of multiple entities in there with slightly different tasks. And so both in my relationship with my own inner teacher and my outer teachers, I have the sense that every time I let go, every time I make less effort, not only do things get easier, but new insights show up. And they're tangible insights. It's stuff that I can actually describe in detail, how my hand is now oriented to the keyboard in a different way than it was before, or my thumbs are tracking the line of the keys in all the time and never pulling away from the keyboard. I'm never allowing my hand to kind of pronate or supinate out from the keyboard, and meaning that I then have to come back in at some point, and it's an inefficiency, and it leads to imprecision. They're tangible things that are just showing up in my playing, not because I'm making more effort, but because I'm making less effort, and then these things show up. These things just arise. And it's like my inner teacher teaches me something. I was practicing a piece this past week when we were up in Santa Fe, and it was like a whole complex of technical changes was happening in my hands. And it kind of came from some things Madeline had said, but a lot of it didn't. A lot of it came from my inner teacher, kind of like feeling something and then making an adjustment, and then making a new rule or a new hypothesis, and then testing that rule, seeing if that held true, discovering that it does sometimes, but there are exceptions. But that experience of those flashes coming, those insights popping out, and those new capacities coming online uniformly happens when there's at least an aspect to the practice that is about letting go of effort. And I think, that's that's something it's hitting me really powerfully right now. Because if that's true, then so many of my assumptions and so much of my general operating system is due for an upgrade. So much of my life. If I can make less effort and make more progress, that is a complete game changer. And something about my it was like a flash after I got up from the piano yesterday. It was like, boom, you feel this feeling? This feeling is from the fact that you think that more effort means more progress. That's what you're feeling. It was like that connection in my brain was converting into a felt sense experience, and some part of me was aware enough to be like, look at this. This is what this makes you feel like. It's tension, it's frustration. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't like it was a bad practice session or a bad day or anything. It was just this residual tension and frustration and an all-around feeling of like, an all-around damper, like you didn't quite, like a wet blanket on myself, on me, on my spirit, on my sense of joy. It was like didn't quite get, not quite there, didn't quite, I tried so hard, why didn't I make me, a whole bunch of just like, and it was, but and there, maybe it sounds so obvious when I'm saying this, like that this is, not a good thing, but it was subtle enough. I'm kind of like almost exaggerating it in the way that I'm describing it, because it was subtle enough that I barely noticed it. It was just the way I always feel. But it was new, and it was the way that I perceived it was new, and what it translated into as far as like how I could do this differently was new, because it was just a full-on reminder of, what if you could make far less? What if the goal is to make less and less and less and less and less and less effort, and see what happens? That's a very exciting question to me. So, I haven't practiced piano today. I get to go give that a shot. And it's about more than piano. It's about, I can tell this is about everything in my life, because that sort of packaged experience that I had on piano yesterday as a, moment of the doing, the practice, and then the moment of finishing, and the moment of afterwards and reflecting. That's just a little microcosm for so much in my life. And if I can make less and less and less and less and less effort overall in life, and make more and more and more and more and more and more progress, that's going to be awesome. That's going to be awesome. So I'll keep you posted. But that's where I am today. Thanks for watching. Love you. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.